What if every experience, every hardship, every obstacle was given to you, not to break you, but to mold you and strengthen you? What if the center of your suffering was actually the key to ultimate health? And what if your own pain was meant to be the catalyst for your greatest purpose? Welcome to Buddha Belly Life, empowering purpose, mind to microbiome.
So anyways, I am excited to hear all about, as everyone is, we want to hear all about Level. So Level is this is the piece that you started at the end of a pandemic. So it's amazing the things that have come out of the pandemic. You know, really rad people after the pandemic. It kind of sifts people out, and there's, the ones that, bless their hearts, they're doing whatever they're doing. And then there's the ones that have used that time, to create. They're like, You know what? I'll be darned if the world's ending. I'm going to go out with a bang and I'm going to do this dream. So tell us all about Level.
Yeah, so Level is a sports nutrition products company dedicated to female athletes. The idea for Level came out about a year ago too. So to your point, we were able to hunker down and get a lot of work done within this year. But the idea for Level came about while my co-founder and I, we were getting our MBAs through Cornell. And we had a course where we had to speak with a bunch of people in a certain group, and we got to pick the group. And I wanted to work with endurance athletes. I wanted to speak with them. And we spoke with both men and women. And, it was so funny. When we were speaking to men, we would ask them like, oh, well, what do you think about in terms of nutrition? Does it cause you any stress? What are you packing with you? And so many of them were like, oh, I just do what I did in college and it's fine and it's worked and nothing's been wrong. And I'm like, lucky you. Okay.
Our stuff changes like with the cycle moon, like depending on what stage of your cycle you're in, right?
The sun goes down and it's like, great, here we are. But, as we were talking to women, it was so interesting. It was, women understood what nutrition they needed to take as they were, training for a marathon or a cycling event. But the products that were available just would make them sick. And, we're talking about mild case was headache to severe was pooping your pants while you're running a marathon. Not going to sugarcoat it.
Which is touted, that's just something that I was always taught. I don't do marathons. That sounds excruciating to me. But for those who do, I've always heard that's just what can happen. That's just what happens.
Just what can happen.
Yeah.
No big deal. Women were told too, a lot of the women that we interviewed, would tell us oh yeah, well, I would get recommendations from friends, and the recommendations from my coaches or trainers is get a bunch of products and figure out what doesn't make you sick, which was infuriating. I couldn't believe it. So my co-founder and I, we were both very angry by this, and we were like, okay, let's look up this some more. Let's try to find out what's going on. And so I apologize. There are going to be some stats that make me angry. They may make other people angry. But stats are important. So
I love stats. Give me stats.
So what we found was currently only 2.5% of sports nutrition products target women. Emphasis on target. So it's not even clear of if this 2.5% is actually made for women or if they're just smaller, pinker versions of male products. Yeah. And then too, I don't know if you've ever looked at any of these websites. I'm not mentioning any, but it is a very beautiful, thin, sexy, pouty woman, kudos to her, but is doing, chest presses with her butt out and that's not how that works. And also not the goal. And we just it just wasn't who I saw. I love going to the gym. I love working out. I didn't see myself in those products. So we were like, okay, well, let's try to find out why this happened. Let's look at more into the research. There has to be research on women in terms of nutrition. Shocker. Not really.
Yeah.
Not at all. So what we found was currently around 3% of sports performance studies include female participants. 3%. And then if they do, there were quite a few as well that even if they included women, they didn't include them in the results because they were so different, they were considered confounding evidence. And so,
oh my gosh.
Right. My co-founder and I were just infuriated. She's also a woman. She actually, I apologize. She also did her degree in women's history. And so we were just very, very, very empowered to try to find out, why was this going on? And then how could we make a solution to it? So all of those pivots that I did before actually proved to be super helpful. Mm-hmm. So, I had the background in nutrition. I also had the background in terms of sports nutrition and sports medicine, because that's what I thought I was going to go towards. I had a deep understanding of glycemic index and sugar, basically glucose control within the serum. And so understanding how different foods affect your blood sugar. And I have a serious hobby in baking and cooking. So I was able to kind of mesh all of these together to start to create products that are whole food based, natural, ingredients you can pronounce and recognize, products for women that aren't going to make them physically sick. And then also keep in mind a lot of the physiology for women and female athletes and how our bodies change. So that's, we are just so excited about Level because Level is driven by the athletes we speak with. So we're completely women-owned, women-run, and then all of the feedback that we get, kind of what we use to really craft our products, as well as how we look at ourselves as a company, is based on the feedback that we got from female athletes. And so it's so much fun to get to learn more about, marathon racing, all of the different sports nutrition, what women are looking for in these products from so many different women. We've spoken to women, that are in their early 20s all the way to their late 60s, and making it this inclusive field. We're called Level because we believe in leveling the playing field. We believe in leveling the sports nutrition field. And, frankly, the sports nutrition market has just failed women. That 2.5%, that's a failure. If we were to grade that, that's more than enough. Mm-hmm. And so we want to be there for those women. We want women to feel like their voices have been heard. So many of the women that we spoke to, wanted to be able to pronounce products, wanted to have a focus on the things that they were looking for, have an understanding too of, is this going to impact my body if I'm trying to get pregnant or if I'm perimenopausal? And so it's so exciting to be putting that to the forefront of a company when those things have just been tossed to the side before because people thought that they were too difficult to handle.
Do you have a desire for fulfillment? Does helping people tap into their own health mentally, emotionally, and physically fire you up? Do you believe in the impact of the gut microbiome on overall wellness? You may be an HWCA coach. For more info on our cutting-edge health coach trainings, visit hwcacoach.com.
We had chatted about this a little bit, but I think there's politics involved with creating supplemental products, and people don't understand that. That's why I'm always educating, and I am not well-versed in the ingredients of supplements, but I'm very cautious with them and careful because I know how, convoluted it can all become. But the process of it, there's not a lot of regulations around supplement production. So they have every reason to to throw out the studies that don't advocate, for their products. So if you've got mainly men that you're testing and that you're doing this with, and they're showing good results, but the women aren't, like, we don't have time for that, right? So,
Right.
So what did you notice a little bit, if you don't mind sharing, like with the politics and kind of those technical frustrations in the process of developing your own supplements?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, there's so many layers of politics. So, one layer of the politics that I'll just kind of throw out was that women, for example, up until Title IX, weren't able to necessarily compete in sports. So we'll throw that one out there. And that was in 1972. So which within itself, I mean, there was like opposition to that too, because I don't know what women, like they thought that women were going to like fall down and break into like a million pieces if they ran, or like our uterus was going to fall out. Like who knows?
Maybe they're just afraid of getting beat by a girl.
Exactly. And so, that I think one really drove why sports nutrition is very focused on men. And even when I was, as we were creating Level and we would speak to kind of like older, type of like VC men, they were like, there are women in sports. And I'm like, yes, almost half. Like it's a thing. So that's kind of one area in terms of the politics. The other as well is that, you have both nutraceuticals and then you have food. So something becomes more of a supplement or a nutraceutical if you're making any sort of claims to it. So like if you're making a claim that it's going to burn fat faster or something like that, that would be considered more so of a supplement over a food product. When you get into that as well, there isn't necessarily for supplements a regulating body. So this is kind of to my PSA for anybody who does buy supplements to always, always, always look through the label and make sure that they are checked by a third-party source, that they have multiple certifications that are recognizable and noticeable, because there isn't a regulating body really outside of the FDA. But again, it's not as, I think, comprehensive as, like, for example, a pharmaceutical. So you can kind of be getting something out there that if it's not certified or checked, it can say, for example, it's echinacea. But when you take it, it's actually a proprietary blend of echinacea that has 0.005 micrograms of echinacea in it, because it's not tested or verified. And so
it can be loaded with heavy metals because it was sourced poorly.
Right. Or you don't know too. You don't know how the processing was done. You're not sure what different fillers are being used, if it's, heat safe packaging. There's so many layers of it. And it's also why too, with our company, we look at ourselves as a food company. We're not, putting crazy engineered components in our products. They are pronounceable fruits and vegetables that you'll recognize. And we then kind of have the security of knowing it's safe. There are so many, as you pointed out, there's so many different engineered products out there that get, testing that's done, but these are snapshot tests, and we're not able then to actually look at how far, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, are there any sort of long-term effects? Was there anything else that we should have been aware of? And so that's why we were dedicated with Level, that we're doing real food and it's fruits and vegetables, and, we know that it's safe for it to go in your body. We understand the macro and micronutrients that are involved because these are well-studied fruits and vegetables. It's a very different approach than I think a lot of what's out there. And it's also what so many women told us they wanted to see. Like it was great because it was in part of what we wanted to do, but it was so amazing hearing that because it was like, this is perfect. This I can do. This makes sense. This we can work towards and use this as a solution.
Mm-hmm. I like that you said the macro micro thing because I talk about that all the time because I work with so many trainers and fitness professionals and previous athletes and people with jacked up guts and or adrenal, thyroid kind of autoimmune conditions because they prioritized macros, and not micros. And if you guys don't understand what that is, like your macros are, your main nutrition components, your protein, your fat, your carbohydrate. And so for people that are competing or like you say, probably like endurance athletes and stuff are mindful of the right ratios because if you eat, kind of funky, it could probably slow you down. It can make you not feel great. So they've kind of looked at that. But when we only look at that, you should see, and you'll see in a lot of meal prep, the average macro meal prep, right? It's like some white rice, some absolutely boiled to death broccoli maybe, and as much lean protein as you can possibly get. Like no emphasis on quality, no emphasis on grass fed, no emphasis on any of that stuff, but just as much as you can get. And then, so it's like really how much nutrition, which is where your micros are, is present in this. And I see, and the gut issues that ensue after this from excessive training and poor nutrient, they're over exerting their bodies without nourishing it accurately. So it's cool that you touched on that.
Oh, thank you. No, I mean, it's such an integral part of it. It's not only too that they are overexerting without proper nutrition, but it's also that a lot of what they're using as well really feeds into the harmful gut bacteria, right? Yes. And so you're going to get an overgrowth of things that are going to make you feel crappy, like things that are going to make you feel bloated, have inconsistent bowel movements, just, make I can go into the microbiome, but when you overfeed the bad type of bacteria, it's like that's what triggers all of that inflammatory response, and it's throughout the body. I mean, yes, the brain is the main control center, but the brain takes a lot of cues from your gut.
Yeah, amen. Mm-hmm. And that inflammation is terrible if you're trying to, I always know if I spent so many years when I try and run, I say try and run because I'm not a runner, but I do what I do. And, but where my ankles or my knees would just be hurting or aching. And it took a lot of years to figure out that inflammation was a big reason. What I had been eating or drinking or doing was inflaming my body, and it was showing up when I was trying to work out. Because then I would go, how come I can run today and I don't feel anything? And I'd be, doing a removal protocol or gut friendly, program, and my body would be feeling fine. And I hadn't run forever, or I just ran the other day and it was fine. And I realized inflammation was so pronounced in some of those circumstances.
Thank you for joining us for another empowering episode of Buddha Belly Life. For more information on gut health and mindset resources, visit buddhabellylife.com. And remember, heal yourself and then empower others to do the same.